Welcome to today's CI Tools webinar. My name is Josh Osborne. I'm the product manager for the CI Tools here at Central Innovation. And this is our weekly webinar where we talk about things to do with the CI Tools. This week, we're going to be talking about a new update we are about to release for the Sites tool. And this one, as you can probably tell by my screen at the moment, is primarily focused on landscaping and planting in particular. So I'm going to show you what is new in the update. We'll also show some functionality that is there already, which fits in nicely with the new functions that are being added. So we'll go through what's in there and how you can use it and why you might want to use it. And the update that includes the new features that we're going to be looking at will be released probably by the end of the day tomorrow, if not first thing tomorrow morning. So once you've had a look at this, if you're interested in trying it out, just grab the latest Sites tool update that'll be coming out in the next 24 hours-ish, and you'll be able to get started in that. I should also note, though, that all of the new functionality is coming out for ArchiCAD 28 only. We may add it back to previous versions after we've done this initial release, but for now it is ArchiCAD 28 only. You won't be able to use it in older versions, but the existing functionality of the Sites tool, of course, still exists in those, so you're not losing anything if you're on an older version still. But yeah, so the update to the Sites tool, as you may know, the Sites tool is primarily focused at the moment on drawing up boundaries for your meshes so that you can create building envelopes and that sort of thing. As of ArchiCAD 28, we moved a lot of the site-related objects into the tool. So that includes a lot of different plants and various other things that you might want to put on a site. And we are sort of expanding that expansion into landscaping with this update where we're adding a bunch of landscaping functionality to the tool. Just before I start in on using that, please, if you have any questions, enter those in the chat panel, and I will pick up on those when we get to the end. If we have time to answer any questions, I'll do those while we're online. So, the new functionality in the Site tool, as I said, is primarily focused on landscaping. And one of the first things that I want to show you is something that has partially already worked, already been in the tool, and we've expanded out the way that it works quite a lot, but that is automatically placing down plants in areas. So in this little project that I've got here, I have created some fills. So we've got fills defining the different areas here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of these fills and I'm going to fill it with plants. So I select the fill that I want. Doesn't really matter what kind of fill it is, just select any fill, go to the CI Tools menu and go down to Sites, and there'll be an option here called Place Plants Within Selected Fills, which does exactly what it sounds like it will do. So we're going to select that option, and when we do, it'll bring up our object picker, and we can go through and choose what plants we want to place down. So in your Sites library, you will see we have all of the usual folders, but the plants cutout folder, which used to have all of the plant objects in it, has now been subdivided into a couple of subfolders just to make the different plants easier to find. There is a total of 242 plants in the plant cutout folder, so navigating through it was quite difficult, so we've reduced it down to 3 main folders: trees, shrubs, and ground cover, which is what we'll be looking at, and OSBreed here we will talk about in a few minutes. So yeah, so we can go through here and we can choose the plant that we want to. So we're down to in the region of 80 or so plants per folder, which makes it a bit more manageable, and you can look by the type of plant that you want. So we'll go in here and we'll choose one of these trees. Let's go with a nice cabbage tree. And the setup for the way that this works is roughly the same as it was before. So we can define the size, we can choose what the spacing should be, and how it displays and that sort of thing. Although you'll see a couple of new things like this tree protection zone, which we'll look at in a little bit when we look at the model view options, and we can also control the model settings. If we change pages on the user interface over to plant data, You can see all of the information about the plant is entered here as well. Again, this is already there in the objects, just showing you that it's still there. And if you haven't used them before, that it is available. And all of these are available as parameters in the object. So if you want to run a schedule with any of these objects, you can pull out all of these parameters in that schedule for you. So you can make a full schedule, you could make a legend plus a full schedule, or whatever you need to by getting these parameters out of the objects. All of the plant cutout objects use the same set of parameters. So if you schedule the common name, it will show you the common name for every one of these objects that you use. So we're happy with our cabbage tree. So we're going to click OK here, and then it gives us the options on how these will be placed. Now, a couple of these we don't need to worry about, but the top one is the grid setting, which lets us choose how these will be arranged inside the fill. So by default, the angle is 90 degrees, so that means that it'll just be a right angle square grid essentially, and the D is the spacing. So the spacing is 1.8 meters at the moment. That's probably not really enough for our cabbage trees, so we'll turn that up to about 2200. And I'm going to have them all offset from each other on the grid, so I'll make it a 45-degree grid. Now, the next part under here is we've got an option to randomly adjust the position. And this, you can enter a value for the amount of deviation away. So what we're saying here is that the spacing should be 2200 between each object, but we should allow for a random shift of plus or minus 400 millimeters inside of that, just so that we don't get a completely strict grid of plants, because that's not going to look very natural or realistic. Obviously, if you do want a exact grid, just set the shift to 0 and it won't randomize that at all. The rest of the values in here only apply when we're placing regular objects. We're placing plants at the moment, so we can ignore these for now. And when this tool does get released, these will actually be grayed out when you select a plant, so that you know that they're not going to be used, because those are set in the actual object itself, which we'll come back to and look at in a bit. So I'm happy with the spacing and randomization setting there. So I'm going to hit OK, and it will go through, and you can see it's placed down a whole bunch of cabbage trees in a you can kind of tell that they're on a 45-degree grid, but they're all slightly randomized off that 45-degree grid. So you can see this one, the shape of the grid there, and then they're sort of shifted away from it. And you can also see that the sizings are randomized as well. So we've got some big ones, some small ones, and that sort of thing. And where that is coming from is in the tree settings. You can see under the size, we have a variation option here. And again, this is going to look slightly different in the released version. We're just making some final changes to this, but essentially you'll be able to choose how much variation around the specified size there will be. So you can have them wildly vary. You could enter up to 100% variation and have them be have the possibility to be double the size that you enter them. And we also have the option to choose if we want the ratio to be locked, or if you want to be able to stretch the size of them. So if you do want them to be long and thin, it's not going to give you great results, because as you may know, the trees are images. So if you stretch them, it will just squash the image. So they don't look great, but if you do need to do it, the option is there if you want to. But that's where the randomization is coming in here, and we can change that at any point after placement, which is why those don't do anything on the placement method. So let's jump to our 3D view and have a look at our cabbage trees. So just wait a second for that to regenerate. There we go. So we can see our nice random selection of trees, and we've got a little bit of variation in heights and that sort of thing. Looking pretty good. One problem that we have is that they're all sticking straight through the mesh, which is not ideal. So what we'll do is we'll select all of these trees. When you place all of the trees using the command that we're using, it will group them all together so that you can manipulate them more easily. Obviously, you're going to ungroup them yourself and that sort of thing. It just groups them all, so it's easy to manipulate them once you have added them. So with those all grouped, I'm just going to go to the CI Tools menu again, go down to Sites, and this time I'm going to choose the option to elevate plants to mesh surface, which again does exactly what it sounds like it would do. So we'll elevate those plants so that they are sitting on top of the mesh rather than sort of inside it. And again, that will work on any plants that we place down here. So we can do that on all of them. Now that we've got some plants selected, we've got a nice forest of cabbage trees there. The next thing that we can do is add variety to the plants that we have placed. So obviously these are all exactly the same object. They're varied in size, some are mirrored, some aren't, and that sort of thing, but otherwise they're essentially identical. So we're going to throw a couple of extra plants in here. So to do that, we'll go to the CI Tools menu again, and we'll choose the option to randomly deselect plants. And I will randomly deselect 40% of them. So we've dropped out some of the selection of plants, and now I can swap to a different object to get a bit of variation. And I think we'll go with just a different cabbage tree now. We've still got the same randomization factors involved, and we'll hit OK, and it will just swap in some different cabbage trees to our lot there. So now we have a nice bit of variation, and we can do that with any plant as well. So you could swap out some of them for shrubs or whatever you need to, just to fill that area up. If I go back to the floor plan view, you'll be able to see that we have those showing now. So if I select these ones, you can see the grouped first set, and then if I select these ones, you'll see the grouped second set of plants that have been added. So it just makes it nice and easy to create a bit of variation inside an area. And we can do the same in any areas that we add. So we can come over to this one and run the same function, place in a fill, and this time we'll choose some ground cover. Let's get these guys, place them 800 mil apart. And then we'll do the same command again. So we'll randomly deselect. Let's make it half of them this time. We'll swap those to a different plant. And now we have two groups of plants inside this fill. And we can elevate those to the mesh as well. It's the second group there, it looks like. Now we just go sites, elevate plants to mesh surface, and that will do the trick. You might have also noticed on initial placement that it was telling us that there was no mesh selected. If when you place the plants inside a fill area, you also have the mesh selected when you do that, it will automatically place them directly on the mesh. So you don't even have to do that second step, but you do have the option to do it at any point. So there we go. We have our next set of plants placed nicely inside that area that we gave it. And we've got a bit of variation in the two objects we have selected. So that's the new placement methods for fills. And now what we can do with these, now that we've got them placed down, is that we probably want to measure them. So I'm just going to turn off this figure now so that it's a bit easier to see what we're doing. Hide that layer. And we'll grab, grab this area, this fill rather, and we will go to sites, and we'll choose to label plants in selected fills. And when we do that, it will attach, in our case, two labels, because there's two sets of plants in here. As it happens, the two different objects are in fact the same plant. So this is a little strange, but what it will do is it will give us a label telling us what each of the plants inside that area is by the object. So you can see we've got 32 of one of the cabbage trees and 9 of the others. So it just makes it nice and easy to do that. And we just essentially don't have to worry about how many there were because it will just do that job for us. Another thing that we can do now that we've got that, the area labeled to say what everything is we can set these to display as massed planting instead of as they are. And when we do that, they'll sort of disappear. And so the fill knows that they're there. They will still show in 3D. Here we go, they'll still show in 3D. So they're still all there. We're just saying we don't want to represent these all as individual plants. We want them to display as in their massed variation so that we don't have to see all of that busyness going on there. And obviously we can add more plants in. We could go back and select some of these and say, actually, I do want to show some. So if I grab a handful of these, we can say these 4 cabbage trees, I don't want those to show as massed. Hit OK. And then if I go back to the floor plan, you'll see those. So you can have as much or as little variation inside that area as we want, but the label is still working on everything that's in the fill. So we're just choosing the way it displays. And we can do that with these as well. So we're going to do something slightly different on these ones. We'll select some of the plants. I'll go back to my group again. Select some of the plants, and instead of labeling the fill area, we'll label the plants themselves. So go to the Sites tool, and this time we're going to choose Label Selected Plants, and it will do something very similar in that it will label the plants. However, it will attach them to groups of plants that are sort of clustered together. So you can see this top group here, there's 18 of them, and it's labeled their name and everything like that. These ones are sort of off by themselves, so those have their own individual labels. So you can go through and quite easily make make labels of groupings of plants as you place them. And we can also control how those work as well. So if we come through here and select this label, we can say, well, this one I'd like to see the bubble around it, as well as a frame on the label. And I'll make the pen red so it's nice and easy to see in this view. And that makes that much easier to see. And you can see that it's also drawn this, this bubble around those plants so that you can more easily see where the grouping is there. And because we've changed the color of the label, it makes those stand out. So again, just however you want to represent these in your views, there is control to allow you to do it in multiple different ways. Now we also have another placement method along with the fill option, and that is to place on a line. So I've got a line that I've just drawn around this sort of deck area here, and I'm going to go into the Sites menu again and choose to place along a selected line. And do the same commands as before, so we'll place some shrubs around this one. I'll set the spacing to, say, 2 meters. Everything else looks fine. Hit OK. It's placed them. You can see the variation has come into things, but it's placed a handful of those along my line. I didn't have the mesh selected, so I'll just elevate those to mesh quickly. There we go. And then if we jump out to 3D, you'll be able to see those new flax bushes there that have come in all based on that line that I drew around the outside there. So it makes it nice and easy to do that same sort of thing on a specific path that you want. And these work in the same way as they did before, and we can also label those as well. So we can go down to Sites, label Selected Plants, and again we'll get a label pointing to those. So we've got 5 of those, and then one more by itself because it's too far away from the others. So we've got 5 and then 1. And we can do the same with that label, so we can change the color and the bubbles and all of that sort of thing as well. So that is the labeling options on the new functionality. The other big new thing is the model view options. So I'm just going to go to my document menu, model view options, and look at the CI sites part. And you'll be able to see we've still got the stuff to deal with the boundary parts of the site tool, but we've got some new things for the cutout plants controls. So we have separate controls for the trees, shrubs, and ground cover. So we can set those all to display differently here. So you can have all of your trees showing with, say, a photographic image or an outline, whereas you could have your shrubs show just a circle and your ground cover not show anything at all, if you like. You can also define the way that the massed planting works. So if you have things set to massed planting, they will show with small triangles, which you can't see because I've got a fill there that is sticking over top of that, but that's what it's doing there. You can override that and say, actually, I want to see massed planting anyway, but only for trees or something like that. So it allows you for a lot of variation on the different kinds of plants that you have in here so that you can show them all in different ways. And we can, for the trees, we can control where the trunk displays as well. That might be something that's useful for you to see, so you can display that. And we can show a shadow for the floor plan view. Shrubs, we can do the same. We can show a shadow. Obviously no trunk setting for that one, and ground cover is the same as well. So we can define all of those. Then we've also got protected trees, and this will allow us to show tree protection areas and structural root areas on those. And so we could go in and we can turn those on. For instance, solid line and blue is fine. Hit OK. And then we'll grab one of these. You can see the other ones that aren't masked there as well because they're grouped. And we'll say these are protected trees. And you'll see that tree protection zone is drawn around all of those that are visible here. And if I go to 3D, you'll see a 3D representation of the protection zone as well. So if you need to visualize that, it makes it nice and easy to see where that zone falls around all of your trees. Obviously, you'll want to turn this off for when you're doing a render or something, but it allows you to do it so that you can see that in the views that you need to while you're placing these and that sort of thing. The last part of the model view option is to deal with labels. Actually, I'll just turn this back off because that made it look very busy. Labels, we can control how the labels work as well. So they all follow this format. So at the moment, we set the code, which is that short, in most cases, 2-letter code. Then we have an X and the number of plants, followed by a colon, then the botanical name, and then in brackets, the common name. So we can change this up to whatever we need to. We can add in additional parts as well. We could say that the plant number should also show, for instance, and it should be underlined or something like that. Hit OK, and then all of our labels will update to say that. So you can see plant number is directly after the code there. Not that you'd ever want to do that, but just shows how you can sort of mix and match the way those labels work. So yes, that's right. So the last thing that is new for these is to do with the labels. So as you can see, the labels we've got quite a few of them attached here, and it looks a little bit haphazard at the moment. So we also have an option to line those up nicely. So what we can do is we can, let's go through and just select all of our objects. And we'll go CI Tools, Sites, Distribute Selected Plant Labels, and we'll just draw a line over here. Some of them are placed at an angle, and this will draw them all out and line them up nicely so that we can have a sort of a schedule off to the side, showing us where all of the plants are. This will not come in at an angle for you because we are in the process of updating this in the actual tool. They will come in straight up and down on the page according to whatever line you drew as you did it, and it just makes it nice and neat and tidy to do those. You can also move them yourself after the fact as well. So this one isn't quite where you want. You can just grab hold of it and move it to wherever you want it, and it will do that. Excuse me, like this. So this one's labeling some of our flax over here, so we can just move it up this way so that it is out of the way or is in line with something else or whatever you want it to do. All right. Now, the last thing that I wanted to cover, and if you did have any questions, please enter those in the chat, and I will get to those in just a few minutes, is that we have been working with a company called OSBreed. They sell plants throughout Australia and potentially New Zealand, I think, at the moment. And they are going to be working with us, providing us with high quality images of their plants for us to use to create plants inside the plants tool. So over time, we'll be building up a library of their plants so that they're available in the library. The new sites update includes 2 of these, which you'll see in the OSBreed folder. We've got a lovely little shrub here and a nice tree here as well. These ones work similarly to how the existing plants work. So you can see that they have the same size settings and all of that sort of thing, with the added difference being that they also have a plan view representation of their photo as well. So you can see we can get a really nice looking floor plan view of this plant in which is an actual photo of the top-down view of this plant. So it looks really nice in your views. Aside from that, though, it works in the same way as all of the other plants do. So you can use this for whatever you want to. And the plant data is included for those as well, the same as with the other ones. So they can be scheduled with everything else and that sort of thing as well. So this folder will be growing over time. As I say, we're starting with 2, and that'll be expanding out in future updates as we go. So whenever you next see a Sites tool update after this one, take a peek in the OSBreed folder, and there may be a few more plants in there each time we do one of those. All right, that is my time up. It looks like I'm just going to pause and have a look and see if we're going